Welcome back to the Hip Replacement Podcast. I'm Chris Bystriansky, your host. I've had both my hips replaced more than 10 years ago. Well, 10 years ago for one and more than 12 years ago for the other one. And I'm here to share with you my experiences with you. So here we go. And before we get started, I just want to mention that I put a new link down into the show notes. So the link is to submit a question or a comment. So I would love to hear from you. So if you have any comment or any question you want me to address, please go to that link and just fill out the form and I will get to it as soon as possible. But I'd love to hear from you. I'm going to be looking in the future to turn this more interactive. So let me hear from you, please. And also let me know where you're located. I'm getting details. The analysis is showing that this is being heard in many different countries as England, Australia, US, Canada. So please let me know where you're from and questions or comments, please bring them on. Okay, so this episode, we're going to talk about the grinding or the squeaking from the hip. Now, what we're not talking about this episode is any squeaking or grinding coming from the bedroom. That's a different episode. In that episode, we'll talk about squeaking and grinding in the bedroom. But we're going to have to wait until I figure out how to do that tastefully so we don't get kicked off the podcast universe, okay? But this episode, we're going to talk about the squeaking and grinding coming from the hip. The hip, not the bedroom. The hip. This episode is squeaking and grinding from the hip. So let me start with this in that I had the anterior approach done on my hips, both of them. And I have what's referred to as a ceramic on ceramic hip. And what that means is there is a ceramic ball on the top of my femur. It's not stainless steel, it's ceramic. And that is basically coming in contact with a ceramic liner, which is inside the steel cup that is up inside my hip. So I have a ceramic ball on the head of my femur, and that comes in contact with a ceramic liner inside the cup inside my hip. Okay, got it? The liner is typically a form of plastic, polyethylene, a very strong plastic. It's supposed to last for a long time. But the concept with the ceramic is that maybe that lasts longer, maybe it's stronger. We'll see. When I did that 12 years ago, it was something relatively new in the US, and I participated in a study where I got the ceramic liner and the ceramic head. And because I was part of that study, and the study was so that it could be approved in the US to use, all right? Part of that study was me going back to the doctor at regular intervals and having x-rays done and answering a questionnaire. And there's like 100 questions on the questionnaire. And some of the questions had to do with if I was feeling any grinding or if I was hearing any squeaking. And for the life of me, I didn't have any of that for the first few years. I didn't even know what they were talking about. I'm like, no, I don't have any squeaking. I don't have any grinding. I don't know what you're talking about. But I did understand the concept of where it might be coming from, but I just didn't experience any of that. 5-6 years later, I was doing the dishes and at my sink and just simple movements of, rinsing the dishes off or standing there washing pots and pans. And we do most of our cooking at home. I like to cook. My wife likes to cook. We cook a lot at home. So we generate a lot of dishes. And my kids eat like horses. So yeah, we're constantly cooking and, which I like to do and having to do some dishes once in a while. So anyway, I'm at the sink doing dishes. And just standing there over a period of time and doing this little movement where I'm rinsing off some of the dishes and pivoting to put them into the dishwasher, which is right next to the sink. Okay, just right next to the sink, and it's open, and it's just a simple motion. I'm just turning like 90 degrees, and I was doing that for 20, 30 minutes. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, as I pivot one time, I felt this incredible grind in my right hip, and it scared me to my bones. It was, I never felt anything like that. And imagine you're driving, what it felt like is, imagine driving down the highway and really fast, and then you slam on your brakes and the whole car just shakes as it tries to stop. That's what it felt like when I pivoted and my hip was grinding. It just, my bones shook. And that only happens now. It started happening maybe 5-6 years into having a hip, and it's only on one side. And maybe now it happens once or twice a year. And I will tell you how I prevent that from happening. I know what's going to when it's going to happen, and I'll explain later how I stop that from happening. But what was going on was that the ceramic ball was at the top of my femur was grinding with the ceramic liner, which is inside the cup inside my hip. And why that was happening was for two reasons. Number one, it was not lubricated. All right, and I'll talk about lubrication in a second. And number two, my muscles were tight and it was compressing my hip. Okay, the muscles above my hip and the muscles in my legs were tight, and it was compressing the hip, removing or eliminating the space, the very, 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 very small space that is typically between the head of the ball, which is on the head of the femur, and the liner. Okay, so typically there's a space in there, and there's the body's natural lubrication gets in there, and everything moves smoothly. Now think about this. The hip components are mechanical. They're metal, just like any machine. And when they get close together, they really need lubrication. Otherwise, they're going to grind or squeak. Now, I mentioned that it's the muscles that were compressed. I constantly battle having to stretch my muscles, the front of my legs and the side of my legs, my quadriceps in the front, and my IT bands on the side, because I'm very active, and I do a lot of bike riding, and I do a lot of walking and swimming. So the front of my legs is usually the front is of both of my legs is usually very tight. And if I do not stretch those, which would help to create space inside the hip, which helps to separate the ball on the top of the femur and the liner inside the hip, then those things compress and rub together. But if I stretch, then there's space in there, and I don't feel any grinding or squeaking. So so when I was doing the dishes that time, that was the first time I felt that grinding when I pivoted. Now, it happens maybe once or twice a year, and it's usually something like that. It's usually something where I'm doing very small movements repetitively. And what I figure is that little small movements are pushing out the body's lubrication, okay? Bigger movements don't seem to do this, because what's happening is that as you move around, make big movements, big strides, big pivots, big turns, like when I golf or when I'm running or walking or something like that, the hip joint is moving a lot. And I think that is able to basically bring in more of the body's natural fluids, which lubricates the hips. But it's little movements that seem to have caused some grinding occasionally. And I try to avoid those. And I try to stretch to move those muscles, to stretch those muscles so they're not as compact, as tight and compact the space in the hip. Okay, so that's the grinding that I feel. And whether you have the polyethylene or plastic liner and a steel ball or a ceramic ball, or if you have a ceramic on ceramic situation like I do, I don't think it really matters. I think the concept is that if you don't have space in those components and you don't have the body's lubrication in there, then you're going to get a little grinding maybe. But don't fear, this can be fixed. You know, it would be wonderful if we could just go to the auto shop or the machine shop and get an oil change. You know, I'll just lube that thing up so, you know, we don't have any grinding. But that's not the case. But fortunately, it's easier than that. And when I say easier than that, it's literally about staying hydrated. You know, increasing the amount of water in the body, which gives the body more natural fluids and allows more to get in those components. And the components, again, I'm talking about are the head of the ball on top of the femur and the liner, which is up inside the cup. And if you're able to do that with the lubrication, you know, that'll be very helpful. Now, I have some friends and some relatives who if they have a cup of water, that's a lot for them. Like 1 cup of water a day, and I don't understand it. They're constantly drinking coffee or alcohol or sodas, and I'm not really sure that has the lubricating power equal to what water has, all right? I'm not saying drink gallons and gallons of water a day, but I think water is maybe the best way to lubricate the inside of the body and especially lubricate the hips. Now, so yeah, drink more water. If you feel a grinding, drink more water and stretch those hips. I'm constantly stretching, but I notice if I don't stretch, then I feel tight. For example, I went out for a bike ride this morning, just simple hour bike ride, nothing too strenuous. And when I got done, I had some food and I have not stretched yet. And as I'm sitting here, I can feel my hips, not my hips, the front of my legs are tight. And when I'm done recording here and producing this episode, I will probably go stretch for half an hour. And that just gives me the opportunity to stretch my hips and take care of myself, because that is so important to helping the longevity of the hip and the components. The last thing that I want to do is grind down my hips, grind down the ball or the liner, because the liner is what's going to need to get replaced probably first. So the more I can do to lubricate the components and create space by stretching the front of my legs and the side of my legs, in my case, in your case, it may be the back of your legs or something, or the inside of your legs. But it's important to stretch the front, the back, the outside, and the inside of those upper legs so that they're not pulling and squeezing the components of your hip. Because all of those muscles that run through your leg roll up through the hip and attach somewhere around the hip and above the hip. So if you don't stretch those, everything gets compacted. So imagine, okay, so if this is the head, I mean, I'm holding up my fist. So if you're watching on YouTube, this is perfect, but I'm going to try to describe it the best I can. So my fist in front of me is like the ball. And then I have like a cupped palm on my other hand above that, my fist. And my cupped palm represents the liner. And if you're able to stretch you gently pull apart and create space between that liner and that ball. But if you don't stretch, that space gets reduced and reduced and reduced, and it can squeeze out the lubrication. If you don't have lubrication and you don't have any space in there where the lubrication would go, you're going to get some grinding. All right. So stretching and staying hydrated, very important to prevent the grinding of the hip because the two components are rubbing together. All right. Now, we've talked about the grinding. And to me, the grinding is the worst of the two between grinding and squeaking. It seems that squeaking is like a level 1 issue, like this is a warning sign. And then if you get to grinding, it's like that's much worse because those components are they are rubbing together. So we don't want to get to grinding, and squeaking is kind of like the alarm bell. Now, I have had some squeaking in my hips. And what's going on there is that it's the ball rubbing up against or very close to that liner. And if you've never heard a squeak, well, I mean, everyone's heard a squeak, okay? They are literally, it can be really loud. And it's only happened to me in my house or outside of my house when nobody was around. Because if somebody were around, it would be loud and I would get a lot of strange looks. So it is a very loud squeak. And this happens maybe 3, 4, 5 times a year with the squeaking and only once or twice a year with the grinding. Okay. But with the squeaking, it's not as severe of a rubbing as with the grinding I talked about earlier. Now, the squeaking is pretty high pitched and my wife has heard it in the house a couple times. It's very awkward to hear. And first couple times it happened, it was pretty scary too. Again, it was small movements that are causing it, which I think squeeze out the body's natural fluids and reduce the space in that between the components of the hip. Now the squeak, again, is not so bad and it's like a warning sign, but my wife has asked me what happened? And I had to explain to her, that's okay, that it's just a little squeaking noise coming from the hip. I need to stretch more. And how I resolve these things with the squeak or the grinding is what I said. It's basically a 2-step process. Staying hydrated, a mix of exercises to help with the range of motion. I guess it's a 3-step process. Number 1, staying lubricated. Water's the best. Skip the coffee or alcohol or reduce it. A mix of exercises to increase the range of motion. All right. And stretch and exercise the muscles on all sides. It's that simple. And my approach is to do those things every day. Because if I don't, I feel it. It's not painful. None of these things are painful. It's just that I want to maintain the hips as long as I possibly can because I don't know about you, but I don't want to go back in for another surgery or a revision. So I'm trying to maintain these things as long as I can. So yeah, that's what I do every day as best I can. So it's important to note also that these things, the squeaking and the grinding, happen on small movements. I golf a lot. I've never had an issue when I'm golfing, when I'm taking big turns. And I rotate a lot. I'm happy to say I hit the hell out of the ball because I take big swings. I've been golfing a long time. I go big, all right? And that was one of the reasons why I did a lot of physical therapy and I took time I was patient going through the physical therapy was because I wanted to get back to golf at a high level, and I wanted to be able to torque my body and my hips. But I've never had any squeaking or grinding when I'm torquing my hips, when I'm twisting really far. It's only when I'm doing small, repetitive motions. And again, I think what's happening is those small, repetitive motions are squeezing out the lubrication, and they're not big enough to bring in fresh lubrication. And it's also a combination of that and when my hips are tight from not stretching enough. And when I say enough, I mean 15 minutes a day. So if I go a day or two without stretching, it has happened. That is when I feel it. Or after I've had a lot of activity, cycling, a lot of swimming, anything like that, where the front of my legs gets tight. So I need to stretch those. Otherwise, I run into the issue of the squeaking or the grinding if I'm not also getting enough to drink. So what do we learn? Squeaking and grinding is possible. It's not painful. There's ways to prevent it by staying hydrated and stretching the muscles, doing a range of motion, and making sure we work all sides of the leg, front, back, inside, and outside of the leg. Doesn't have to be extensive. Doesn't have to take all day. It doesn't have to take an hour. 10 minutes is 10 to 15 minutes is about what I do daily, or as often as I can. Now, the squeaking, I mentioned I've never realized somebody outside of my house hearing it. And I'm not sure what I would do if my hips squeak and somebody outside the house hears it, like if I'm in a store or something like that. I don't know. It's going to be quite an experience. It might be funny. Who knows? I guess I'm looking forward to that scenario if it does happen, because it's loud. It's like if you've ever heard like brakes squeaking on a car, it's kind of like that, but it's almost like more of a whine. Like, I mean, I don't want to say an injured animal, like a moan, but I guess it's a combination of maybe like an injured animal moaning and squeaking brakes of a car. I don't know if you can imagine that, but that's what it is. I don't know if I would not imagine that if you have a plastic liner and either a steel ball or a ceramic ball, I'm not sure it would squeak like that, but maybe it's possible. But anyway, if it happens, focus on a couple things: staying hydrated, water, reduce the alcohol, don't eliminate. I'm not saying eliminate. I'm saying just think about more water to help increase the body's natural fluid, and stretch the muscles of the upper leg and possibly even the lower back to help create more space and more range of motion and get more fluid into that hip to lubricate it. All right. So that's it. I hope that was helpful. Leave a question or comment if you'd like. Love to hear from you. Thanks so much for tuning into the Hip Replacement Podcast. And until next time, I wish you the best recovery possible. Take care.